Back to another video. Today I'm going to run through the 2026 Silk Road Mountain Race route. It was released a couple of days ago, so I thought I'd just check out the map on Riber GPS and show you some of the videos and photos I've taken along the route in the past few years, and hopefully give you a bit of an idea of what to expect if you were considering entering the race, or if you want to go next year. So this is the Silk Road Mountain Race, or the Mountain Race's website. So the dates for the 2026 Silk Road Mountain Race are the 15th to the 29th of August. And as you can see, applications are open till the beginning of December, 8th of December. So that's a couple of weeks from now, if you're watching this straight away. And yeah, this is a bit of an outline of the route. So you can see Ride with GPS are the race partner for mapping, and they're someone I use anyway, so it makes life a lot easier when it's already on there. So you can see on the route here, the start is in Talas, which is in the west of the country, and there was a start here before. I think last time the race started here, the registration was in Bishkek, which is the capital, so that's where everyone, or most people, will arrive from or arrive to. And it was, I think it was 2021 or 2022, and basically all the riders signed in at Bishkek and got a bus to the start in Talas, which was a bit chaotic because I think the bus turned up 6 hours after the riders, and it was all a bit chaotic, and they ended up starting at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, this time the start is in Talas and the registration is in Talas. It's not the biggest town in the world. I mean, it doesn't take much just to zoom in on the map and you can see it's a little more than a village. We might be able to go into Google Maps here. It doesn't give you much more. So I would recommend trying to sort your accommodation fairly early. There's not an awful lot there, so it's probably not a place you want to sort of hang around for a whole week or something before the start if you're planning to acclimatise. But it's in a very good, kind of a pretty good location to ride from Bishkek to get there, and that might be a pretty cool little adventure if you're up for that and you've got some time before the race. So yeah, so the start is in the morning, so it's on, I think it's a Saturday morning, so it's Saturday the 15th of August, I believe, and the first climb, if you have a look, I'll move my head out of the way. You can't see the profile. The first climb comes pretty quickly. You can see down on the bottom left here. Just a reminder, as always, on the elevation chart here and on the red line on the actual map when using Riber GPS, the sort of black and white dashed section, that means off-road, and then the solid red is tarmac. And as you can see, there's not really much tarmac at all this year. Sometimes there's a bit more in the Silk Road Mountain Race, but this one seems to be particularly off-road heavy, which is a good thing, I think. We don't want to spend too much time on the roads when there's all these amazing mountain tracks out there. So the first climb, this first part I'm not super familiar with, so I don't have much in the way of video, but I've been roughly through the area, so I should be able to sort of give you a fair idea of what to expect. So the first pass is Terek Pass, so 3,776 meters. So not massively high in Silk Road Mountain Race standards. It's kind of weird. You start the race, and certainly this year, 2025, it went over almost to 4,000 meters, and that totally screws you. 3,000 meters, you'll feel it for sure, but by the end of the race, it's a bizarre psychological thing. You feel like unless it's over 3,000 meters, it doesn't really count. So yeah, this is kind of an average pass in Silk Road's terms, but it's coming early in the race, 50k to the top. I'm sure some people will go way too hard. I suspect it's going to be pretty hot in this area as well. It's the kind of the western end of the country is more kind of deserty, so all the weather sort of comes along more in the higher mountains in the east, but this area is bordering I think it's Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, I can't remember exactly. So yeah, Uzbekistan in the south there, Tajikistan's further south, and then Kazakhstan at the top there. So hot deserty regions. So yeah, we'll be closer to Kazakhstan at the start here, and obviously hot and dry, and that kind of like the mountains around here are warmer. All the weather tends to kind of focus on the eastern end and these higher mountains, the Tian Shan mountain range. So I suspect the start is going to be pretty hot. So a big high pass. And then we pass these, it's Tokjil Reservoir, which is this big reservoir here. Again, it's an area I'm not super familiar with exactly in terms of the route. However, if I go to my heat maps here, I can put on the personal activities, and you can see the purple line here as to where I've ridden, and you can see I've been kind of out this way, a bit further out down here, but it's not a million miles away, so I suspect it's going to be fairly similar. So basically I'm expecting quite a bit of, you can see dry roads, pretty warm, and not much kind of, well, there's always water in Kyrgyzstan, but maybe not as much as further places. And you can also see there it's quite washboarded, so I'd expect a lot of washboard roads, and dusty as well, so bring something to cover your mouth, like a buff or something like that, because you always breathe in so much dust in these regions, and it really does get on your lungs. So yeah, that's just one thing to consider. So yeah, I think it's going to be warm and hard. In the race manual, Nelson suggests that this kind of early section, it doesn't look too much on a map, but then you have to realize that these high peaks are kind of nearly 4,000 meters. So actually, there's a fair bit of climbing, and these climbs can take quite a while. So yeah, the heat and everyone's eagerness, I think, will play into the early part. And then we head into the Karakol Valley. Now, this is an area I am familiar with. I rode out there last year. So you can see this section here where my cursor is. That's the Karakol Valley. And we'll actually do a bit of out and back. So this is Kageti here, which we'll hit later in the race. But we're going along the Karakol Valley, and that's just a really beautiful place. As I said, I rode out to the start in Osh this year, and this is what the Karakol Valley looks like. This is coming in the opposite direction to the one that we'll be riding, but you can see in the far distance those mountains. That's basically the top of the pass, but it's a real long drag, but it's beautiful. I think if you pictured Kyrgyzstan, kind of like pasture lands and yurts and, lots of sort of wild horses and stuff like that, this is the picture book Kyrgyzstan valley. So yeah, it's going to be quite a nice start. I think nothing too brutal, aside from the first sort of shock of going up to 3,000 meters. But apart from that, I think it's going to be relatively easy rolling in terms of surfaces, at least. As in, you can drive them. Not going to be too many hiker bikes that early on. Could be famous last words, but I think that'll be the case. And as you can see from the map here, it looks like there's quite a few little towns and shops. The Karakol Valley, that's going to be probably half a day's ride. So early on, I don't think you need to take more than sort of a day's worth of food at a time. And then you get into this section here, Donalj, I think that's how you say it. There's a few shops there. I've resupplied there plenty of times. And then you climb up to Songkul. And now this is going to be a tough old climb. So I did this in reverse in 2023 when I first did the Silk Road mountain race. The first checkpoint, CP1, is up Songkul. It'll be a yurt camp somewhere up there. Normally it's decided sort of closer to the race, but it will be in the vicinity of this mark here. It's going to be a steep climb up here. Probably a little bit sketchy single track. And yeah, it's going to take a while. It's kind of it's what's the name of the pass? I can't remember now. But it's a steep old pass. I went down it, and you're kind of hanging over the back of the saddle, just to sort of keep the weight balance on the bike. So for sure, it's going to be a push up. And then you get up to Songkul itself, and it's I rode there as I said, in 2023. This is what it looks like. This was early in the morning. I set off in the dark from the yurt camp. I stayed there, so it's probably a good place to stop if you want. But you can see kind of the weather sitting on the lake there. So there is always potential for it to be a bit stormy. You're getting kind of higher up now as well, for a sustained period. So you need to look out for that. And then you drop down again. I can't remember the name of this descent, but it's pretty epic. I climbed up it, so I'm definitely looking forward to going down. There's a little bit of resupply down here, and again, I suspect this is going to be very hot. You can just see by the colours on the map, like there's a lot of sort of browny colours. And And Beethoven is it's a good place to resupply. It'll be one of the bigger towns on the route, and yeah, you'll have options. There is a hotel there. I think it's the Soviet hotel. Is it Beethoven or Kazaman? I can't remember which one the Soviets hotels at. I think it's one over here somewhere. This hotel, I believe. So quite a lot of people often stay there. And then you'll be heading back out. I've ridden this section before. You can kind of see the line's covered over. I've ridden this section before in reverse. It's going to be deceptively tough, I suspect. It depends on the wind direction as well. But when I rode it, it was just headwind. And you can see here, this is a little further along, but it just gives you a feeling of the gravel. It's kind of rough, it's deep, you're always swapping lines. If a car comes by, you're going to get showered in dust. And there wasn't an awful lot of water. I'd say you can see the loop on my route here, on my sort of history here. This route here was probably the driest section of the race I did in 2023. So I wouldn't expect too much in the way of water, certainly until you hit these climbs here. You can see it's kind of rolling. There's nothing major, not at least in kind of Kyrgyzstan Silk Road standards, until you start climbing up to the border. And now this is an area I'm not familiar with. So I'm not exactly sure exactly how it will be, but I've got a fair idea, having ridden some of that section this year on the 2025 version. So you can see this is the massive hiker bike we did in 2025 up through here. So I imagine the terrain will be similar, but I gather it's not as much of a hike, but you do never know with Nelson. He does like to lay a little trap for people. But I've got a few photos that I took. So this is the Chinese border road. So this is a section that gets ridden quite a lot in the Silk Road mountain race. And the border road, if I find some photos, it looks a little something. It looks a little something like this. So this is coming along onto the road. So I imagine that it could be similar. The kind of tracks that we see. You can see this was like an old tank road or something like that. Out to some remote military checkpoints. So I suspect it could be rolling terrain out to the actual tarmac itself. And then once you get to the tarmac, it's fairly good, and you can see you're high, you're exposed, you're at 3,000 meters. So the big thing here is weather. This was pretty good. It wasn't like roasting hot by any means. And I've camped up there before, and I've seen the lowest temperatures on the Silk Road, like -6, -7, and I'm sure it can get colder. But also you can see like the clouds are kind of building on the mountains here. So there's always potential for the clouds just to roll in, storms to roll in, and you're pretty exposed. There's no shelter. You've just got to get your head down basically and keep on riding. And it'll basically be you and truckers on this road. And as you approach the Chinese border, there's normally long queues of trucks waiting to cross the border, go through the customs. Obviously, we don't go through the border to China on the Silk Road race, but you kind of you'll definitely be going close. So just where are we now? Just here. This is where the red line finishes. This is the border checkpoint. There's limited resupply. There is talk of the blue caravan, as you can see on here. It's kind of a bit of a mystical kind of cult of the Silk Road race. So basically, the truckers they kind of they want food and stuff. So there's this little caravan that cooks up food for the caravans for the truck drivers. In 2023, I stopped there and got food. However, last year they were shut, or they weren't cooking anything. I managed to buy like a chocolate bar, but I would just say you can't sort of rely on that being open and being able to get a meal there. Some people are lucky, some people aren't, and it's still quite a drag up to the checkpoint here at Kelsu. So yeah, you've got quite a long section where you want to be kind of fully fueled up. So I'd almost like have a massive resupply at Beethoven, and then just top up when you can. And basically expect to need to get to this checkpoint, CP2. Now to get there, you turn off the highway, and then you've got this long section here. So I've ridden it in both directions. I rode it towards the Chinese border road in 2023, and this section is actually the same as this year's race, 2025 race. So I've ridden it in the other direction as well. I mean, you're pretty exposed up there. Again, it's not too much different to the Chinese border road in terms of altitude and in terms of kind of exposure. But the road is kind of not very well driven. it's not tarmac road, put it that way. Stuff does go up there. Again, it's quite fast rolling in some instances. Other instances, it's a bit softer gravel. You've got a few river crossings. You can see on the left here, this is the sort of fencing to the Chinese border. Actually, in the race, we'll be coming the opposite way. So you can see the mountains in the distance there. That's basically where the Chinese border is. And the kind of the blue caravan and the truck stops are just behind that. But this was spectacular. This was sort of going into sunset, as you can see, but the temperature dropped really quick. So yeah, it's going to be, as soon as the sun goes down up here, it's going to be not much over freezing, probably a little under freezing, and gets really cold as well. So yeah, just bear that in mind. You want to be wearing your insulated stuff, as I am in my office here, because it's the coldest room in the house. But yeah, it's good for cold offices, and you want warm stuff for high altitude passes too. So yeah, the checkpoint here, if it's the same place as this year, it's really good. There's beds available, you can recharge stuff, really good food. When I got there, I rode in with Chris Burkhart. He was actually a tiny bit ahead of me, and yeah, we both got in there, and there was warm soup, noodle soup, and like food waiting for us, which is exactly what you want. Straight into bed. It was a really quick and efficient resupply. And then I started really early up the Soviet road. So you can see, you see on the, it doesn't look much here, does it? You can see this warning on the map here. The old Soviet road. It's a hiker bike. There's no getting out of it. You're going to be hiking up there. It's not particularly long. It's probably a couple of kilometers at most. But it's just steep, and you can see here this is 2023. So this would have been around midday, and yeah, the checkpoint. You can see the lake in the background there, just to the right of the screen behind the hills where the checkpoint is, and it's basically a steep line, and it looks fairly steep on camera, and cameras always make it look flatter. So yeah, you're gaining a lot of elevation. Basically, you're going in a dead straight line for about K. And then it kind of like rolls over the top a little bit, but you've got to basically expect at least an hour hiking uphill in a straight line, basically. And then you drop back down the other side, and then once you're back on the main track, it's fairly easy going. You'll have a big pass down. There's a military checkpoint as well. I had a bit of not trouble, but you need border permits to go in this part of the course on the Chinese border. Nelson, the race organizer, he will give all the border guards a list of everyone coming through, and basically I got there and they asked for my permits, and I said, well, you have the permits, and they said, no, you need permits. I was like, yeah, well, you should have a list. And this went on for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then he rather cheekily said, "Oh," and then pulled out his bit of paper with all the lists on under his desk. So yeah, you need a little bit of patience at these border crossings or these military checkpoints. It's probably better when you're further back in the race. I was sort of third or fourth through this particular checkpoint. I was going pretty well in the race this year, and I think it takes them a while to kind of get used to it and get used to the fact that there is a list they need to check people off on. So yeah, I think further back it's probably easier, and then you've got a long descent and a bit of a gravel kind of. It shows tarmac here. This is not tarmac. It's definitely gravel. Again, dusty. You want something on your mouth. There's loads of 4x4s coming up here. So this is a bit of a tourist trap at CP2 in Kelsu. So you'll see early in the morning, a lot of tourist cars coming up, 4x4s, and then I guess in the evening they'll be going back down again. But it just means there's a lot of dust on this road, and then you hit the kind of, again, it says tarmac here, but this isn't all tarmacs. It's mostly dirt until you get to the top before Narin. But yeah, once you're here, you want to be having a big resupply. There's some pretty good shops in Akmuz. I resupplied there last year. And then Narin is kind of, well, it's known as Scratch City. It's kind of like the most convenient place on the route to Scratch. So it often gets some victims. There's good hotels, there's restaurants. Rumour has it you can get pizza. I've never found that, but yeah, apparently so. And yeah, some good shops. But you want to be having a big resupply here, because essentially you're not really going to be able to resupply from there until CP3, not in any significant way anyway. You can see last year we had a last minute change to the route. You can see the purple line just goes north of the river here. So basically one of these bridges had fallen through, so we got a bit of a bonus climb up through here, which wasn't the best, to be honest. But hopefully the bridge will be repaired in time for next year. So yeah, it's relatively easy out of Naryn, and then you're going up the Birken Valley. I've not actually managed to get any video of that, but it's a long, steady climb, and then you're in the Arabelle Valley, which is it's just one of the absolute classics of the Silk Road mountain race. And as you can see, it's a bit of an out and back. So the Arabelle Valley is really beautiful. Unfortunately, this is where I pretty much knew I was going to have to scratch this year. But it's this is what we're looking at. So the first time up, you'll be climbing towards the camera, but once you've come back around again, this is the way you'll be heading. It's just wild, beautiful up there. It's going to be cold, but then when the sun comes out in the morning, if it does come out, the 2 times I've been there, it's been quite sunny and therefore warmish by 4,000 or 3,500 meter standards. Yes, it's beautiful, but I can imagine the weather could close in quite quickly, and I know it can, because last year when I was up at the top, it was sunny when I was there, and then I got smashed by a storm pretty soon after. But you can see you go up over Arabelle, and then you drop down this road here. It's a, what's it called? Buxoon Pass, is it? Buxoon. This is basically you're kind of coming back into the real world. It's quite touristy. There's quite a lot of tourist stuff down in the bottom half. You'll be able to resupply relatively easy down at the bottom, and it's just fast. It's a fast rolling. It's a mining road essentially. There's a mine at the top somewhere, so you can get down there pretty quickly and pretty easily. And this is what it looks like. It's basically kind of a dirt highway, so you'll be going down pretty fast. You can see the clouds at the top there. Now I basically I was above the storm, and then I rode down through the storm. This is while I was scratching this year. So it should be quite fast, but then if it does rain, it was quite muddy, and I just finished at the checkpoint absolutely covered head to toe in mud. But by the time I got back down to the shores of the lake, it was really sunny and dry. So yeah, just expect everything in this area. You're going from nearly 4,000 meters down to about 1,200, I think it is, maybe 1,400 to the checkpoint. So yeah, lots of changes in elevation and temperature, and you can kind of drop through storms and out the other side. And then this is the checkpoint. This is a photo I took. So yeah, you can see kind of what the place looks like. That's the kind of food. They were really switched on here. You definitely pay the price for this stuff. I think it's a bit inflated, but by this point in the race, you're starving hungry. You've been sort of in the wilds for a while. So yeah, you just want to eat as much as you can, and they do a good job. And you can get a shower. You can just have a shower and carry on, or you can book a room overnight. So I ended up staying for a night or two when I scratched this year while I sorted myself out and got home again. So yeah, so that is the CP3. And then you're kind of going back up again. Again, I've not actually ridden this pass. This is Tossor Pass. It's meant to be one of the best passes on the race. I was supposed to ride it this year, but excuse me, I obviously scratched. But yeah, it's meant to be rideable. And then you come back to the sort of Arabelle Valley here. So you'll kind of go back and forth on the same section here. And then again, this section here, I'm not overly familiar with. To be honest, by this point, I wouldn't worry about it too much, because by this point you're just kind of, if you get to here, you're pretty kind of relaxed about how things work in Kyrgyzstan. I do have this Ukok Pass. It says long hike up the pass, likely one of the hardest parts of the race. So this is Nelson saying that it's going to suck. Basically, it's you're 1,000 miles in. It's going to be a hard hike bike. I think Shamsi Pass is around here somewhere as well. So maybe people who've ridden that. I think Shamsi's over here somewhere. It may be similar to that. So yeah, again, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I believe this is the first time it's been held in included in the race. There is a little bit of bit more kind of civilization around this part. Around the lake, is it Cool Lake? That's where a lot of towns and villages are. So you can resupply in Tossor and at the checkpoint as well. So you need enough to get up and over Tossor, through the Arabelle Valley, back down again. And then after that, it's not too bad at all for resupply for the rest of the race. This pass, Ukok, I'm sure there'll be some stories coming from this. But But after last year's or this year's hiker bike with all the river crossings, I'm hoping it won't be so bad. But that could well be the famous last words. So I'm sure we'll find out. You don't want to know everything about these races because adventure is part of it. And then you'll be heading back up sort of where you were earlier, up towards the Arable Valley, and then the absolute classic Kageti Pass. This is amazing. If you've not been to Kyrgyzstan before and you do want to ride out to the start, then I'd really would recommend riding from Bishkek over Kageti and along to Talas somewhere. I've actually got a video of doing this on the way to Osh this year for the start of the race, so I'll put a link on the screen for that if you're interested. But yeah, Kageti, we're going up from the shorter, arguably harder side. It's almost 4,000 meters. I think it's like 3,900 at the top or something like that. But it's definitely pretty tough going up from this side. It's going to be a hiker bike. This was 2023, and as you can see, it's a bit of a broken. I think it's basically there's been a massive landslide at some point and taken away what track there was. I mean, I wrote down it. If you check out the video that I linked just now, myself, Alex Kopp, Stephen and Helen, we rode down it, and you can ride pretty much all the way down it, but it's just steep, so it's not you're not really able to ride it even if you want to. So yeah, it's high altitude. You're tired by this point, so you will be pushing, but the views at the top are pretty spectacular. So yeah, it's an absolute Silk Road classic, and it's a pretty amazing place. And yeah, it's definitely cool. In actual fact, I'm just going to link. I was just going to show you. This is a bit of shameless self-promotion. I've actually put together a little magazine. ULTRASCAPE is my podcast, if you didn't know. And actually, the front cover is Kageti. So this is Alex Kopp pushing over Kageti. This will be the opposite direction from the direction we're going. But I've actually, some of the photos I showed you earlier, they're all included in this little magazine. Basically, I took loads of film shots this year at many of the mountain races, quite a few in Kyrgyzstan. And rather than stick them on the internet, I thought I'd do some print. It seems a shame to shoot analog and then put it on the internet anyway. So if you're interested in one of these, I'll link on the screen, and you can get yourself one of these little magazines. And there's some cool photos which you might enjoy, and it helps me support the channel and keep doing what I do. So yeah, after Kageti, there's a bit of a relief, a bit of tarmac along here. There's plenty of shops and villages. You'll be able to get some food. There's a good shop in Kageti. You can get like kind of noodles and stuff. And yeah, you're almost done then. You've almost kind of broken the back of it. Kageti's the last, well, I say the last pass. It's the last sort of real test before the end game, I guess. You then have the bonus climbs, which are these tiny little looking climbs you can see on the map here where the orange dot's going. I can assure you there's nothing bonus about them. I did them in 2023, did most of it in the dark. I was absolutely nailed by that point, and I was just sort of surviving. I could imagine if it rains up there, the surface could get a little bit wet and muddy. So that's definitely worth kind of considering. But as I said, by this point, if you've got this far, you're pretty much going to finish. You know what to expect. There's not going to be anything too horrendous. And normally the mindset by that point is just to get your head down and get it done. There's a good resupply here, the Secret Oasis. That's probably going to be one of your last resupplies, either there or Shabdan, which is a little village here. So yeah, good resupply, and you're resupplying to the finish here. And then this is an absolute, this is a classic section. Absolutely loved it when I did it in 2023. So this was the finish section. Essentially from Kageti to the finish is the same as 2023 when I did the event. And you'll be basically riding up the, what's it called? The Chongkemin Valley. So I've got a bit of video I'll show you now. So the Chongkemin Valley is it's basically kind of a dead-end valley. So it's pretty empty. There'll be a few shepherds up there. There's like herds of horses up there and stuff like that. And basically, you just climb up a bit. It's kind of like a draggy, rolling climb. It doesn't feel like a massive pass. Well, not at least compared to the rest of the race anyway. This is the kind of track, and basically you're just heading further and further up this valley. It was really beautiful. It was one of my favourite places when I was there in 2023. And then you basically head up the valley, and you can see from the map here, basically take a hard right. and that is your final test. So the final test of the race is Cock-Arrick. Essentially, it's a 4-hour hiker bike. I mean, you wouldn't want to finish any other way on the Silk Road race. And you can see here, you can ride some of the early bits, but you're heading all the way up to the top there where that glacier is. Basically, the track's been washed away. It's in various states of disrepair. I'm sure it'll be different now than it was in 2023, but I wouldn't expect it to be any better. So yeah, you're basically hiking all the way up this massive climb. You're pretty much touching 4,000 meters, one of the, if not the highest points of the whole race, right at the end there. And then you drop all the way down. I did this I must have got to the top about midnight in 2023. I was probably a bit off my face with tiredness and fatigue by that point, so God knows how I got down in one piece. But basically, you can almost, I wouldn't say freewheel the whole way, but you've got a good hour's descent, and then you hit the main road. I think it's about 10 miles or something like that. Top 15k along the road to Choppenalta. Once you get here, there are plenty of little shops and things, and yeah, you can get any resupply. But to be honest, by that point, you kind of know you're almost done. Easy rolling on the tarmac. There's a bit more traffic, so it's a bit of a shock to the system actually after being in the wilds for quite a while. But then you finish in Choppenalta, and then you'll be done. So yeah, it's a good route. I'm definitely looking forward to it, which means I've put my entry in, so hopefully I'll get a spot. Got a little bit of unfinished business after having to scratch this year, so definitely keen to go back. And Kyrgyzstan is just an amazing country, so I would recommend anyone to enter it. If you're unsure about it, just do it. It really is a beautiful country. It's an amazing experience, and I would thoroughly recommend it. So yeah, hopefully that was useful. I think the transcontinental race route is going to be launched, I believe it's later this week, so I'll try and do another video on that in a few days' time. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.